Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Lunch Table Podcast with Dylan and Akram. It is with a heavy heart that we have to review the final episode of Succession, Season 4, now out on Max, as it's now called. Akram, I have so many thoughts. I know you do as well. This was a very painful episode to watch. I know we've been sticking around with this series for a long time. So, without further ado, let's start off with your thoughts.
Yeah, full spoilers ahead, everybody. We're going to get to the nitty-gritty. What a tragic episode. Unfortunately, no one really succeeded. They lost. And so that was the series finale for Succession. So we have a lot of thoughts to say about it. Guys, stick with us. How tragic. And everyone's just like, what did Christian Bale say in Batman Begins? You're all phonies. All of you are suck up
low lives.
Seriously, I am so disappointed. It was a really realistic episode, I'd say, like authentic to the actual story structure and where they're going in the narrative. But I think, everybody wanted to see Kendall reign and live prosperous. Unfortunately, that's not the case. It leaves me with a sour taste in my mouth. But it's authentic. At least you can't say it isn't. So yeah.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of how Game of Thrones ended in a way, but I think it was more appropriate for this show.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like you thought Jon Snow was gonna be the king, but it ended up being like the most unlikely person, right? But here, I think it makes sense realistically. It's hard to say that because, like you, I also wanted Kendall to be, the king, right? I wanted him to succeed where Logan had left off, his legacy. I think he was the most appropriate choice, but I think Jesse Armstrong, is kind of smarter than that in a way, and he knew that this was a show. It's like a Shakespearean play, right? It's not a comedy or a romance. It's a tragedy, right? And so it unfortunately has to end like a tragedy. Although I think they could have, given more a nicer ending to a lot of characters.
God, I'm so depressed. I swear to God,
bro. I felt like I got fucked in this episode. Like I was in that board meeting. I was like, shit.
Oh man.
But let's start from the beginning. So yeah, of course, there's the big, announcement of the shareholders. They're casting their vote of their confidence in the Gojo deal, and Madsen and Shiv are talking, and I thought it was interesting too. They had this little like New Yorker style comic illustration of them, so like they're colluding, and everybody's trying to get their war cabinets together. And Roman is at his mother's house after the last episode where he was kind of like going through a lot of stress and anxiety. So Shiv and Kendall are both trying to get Roman on a team. So yeah, let's get your thoughts on that whole interaction.
I honestly really didn't like Shiv in these past couple episodes. I felt like, it's really realistic. Everybody has problems with their brothers and sisters. For the most part, family can be a wrench in the whole like well-oiled machine, and it stops things. And she really bothered me. I'm not gonna lie. Throughout this whole episode, she really irked me. And so, Kendall's the guy. He's always trying to keep the ball rolling and get people on his side. He's nonstop working. But Roman, again, he's not that guy. We all thought he was, but Roman has
You're
a lot
not that guy.
Yeah, you're not that guy. There you go. But he's very traumatized, of course, and understandably so, with his father's passing and in the funeral. But what I don't get is just like why, like I know there was so much trouble that had occurred. I think it's two things. I think it's the trauma from the family since the very beginning, and it's built up to this thing. Once that this mythological character actually has a flaw, a heart thing, and he has a heart attack in the beginning, season 1, they started to realize that, oh shit, yeah, things aren't all that it seems to be, and our lives in a way is kind of shitty. Doesn't matter how much access we have. There's so much struggle. There's that fight, and not everyone's meant for it. And I think Logan's discussion he had with Kendall in season 3, and the discussion at karaoke bar, I think those two scenes were very important to pay attention to show like the dichotomy of this family. So Kendall's like which the mom is annoying too. She doesn't care, but we already knew that, whatever. And Shiv is just there. She thinks she's like better than everybody, but she's
hot
actually
shit. Yeah.
yeah, she's like there to win Roman over basically. And Kendall's trying to win Roman over too. So it's a complex situation because you have the mom bugging in all the time and buzzing around with her, what's his name, Pete or whatever, his her husband,
New husband.
yeah. So it didn't last very long because then we cut to another scene, of course, where we see that, which I thought was actually a really good scene. It kind of reminded me of Do You Want to Make a Deal with the Devil scene in season 3, and also I think in season 1 when Tom and Greg were like conversating things. Even the lighting was the same. And so basically Madsen offers the position to Tom to be U.S. CEO, and he'll be puppeted by Madsen. And I thought that was a really bold move that they did. I did not really see that coming because for the most part, it seemed like Tom was kind of like this lackey through this whole season. And then he's actually the big guy. He will be the big guy on top. And how complex is that he's still married to Shiv? And it's such a... Where's Maury? Let's get Maury and like some politician to settle this. But yeah, anyway, I talked long enough. Give me your thoughts.
It's a dilemma, yeah. Well, just going back real quick to the whole, mother's house. I think what made this episode so bittersweet was at first it kind of felt like they were all coming together, and this was like, a happy moment in succession where like we rarely see the Roy siblings like get along, right? If they do, it's like usually because they're trying to play each other, or it's like they all have a common enemy. Here it was kind of like for a brief moment, Jesse Armstrong said it best. It was kind of like their innocence was recaptured, right? They were kids again, right? They were all having a moment. They finally came to agreement that they felt like Kendall was the best fit, right? It was hard for them to swallow that pill. Not that red pill, but but I think it was hard for Shiv, especially because I think, especially having 2 older brothers, she kind of, and it was hard for all of them too, because they kept going back and forth about like, oh, well, dad said this, dad said that, right? Like he said, she said, right? Because Logan was so inconsistent over the course of the series of who he wanted to be the CEO. So for them, it's like, oh, well, they all could have had legitimate claims, right? Even Kendall had like the letter, but even that was like spotty too. So I think for them, for Roman and Shiv to kind of let bygones be bygones and be like, well, you know what? Kendall's fucked, but we're also kind of fucked up too, right? So maybe it makes sense for him to kind of take the crown, right? And it was a sweet moment. And then they have like that meal that fit for a king. That shit was so nasty. I felt like to hurl when I saw that scene, all the shit they were putting into it. But no, it was cool. And I love the song that they played too, because that's Roman's song. I love that song so much from the soundtrack. So it was a fun little moment where they were kind of like kids again before, they had to go back to being adults, right? And they have a brief, moment at, the Logan estate where Connor is having like an auction, and they watched this video of Logan, and I thought also that was kind of, our last time we'll see like Brian Cox.
Yeah.
And I thought it was sweet because it's like the only time in the show we've seen him be like a father, right? Or like a human being, right? They're like watching this, like they don't even know when this took place, right? It was like them just having like a laugh, and Carl and Frank were there, and they were like messing around with each other, and Logan actually looked happy and like a father figure. So I thought that was sweet. And then comes the board meeting. It came tumbling down on everybody. I was so shocked watching this. But it's in that Succession fashion where it's like you think somebody has a lead, and then it kind of flips its head on you, right? And it kind of leaves you in shock and awe. So yeah, why don't we start with your thoughts? Because I know that was also a big shocker for you as well, like that whole voting scene.
Yeah, it's well, it started again. It has a parallel to the first season. And so this time Kendall is in the head seat there, And of course, Frank. I was shocked to see Frank as like a snake, and everyone's like rushing now because they know that Kendall is acting as the CEO, so they needed to do this now. And before that, also, there was this very intimate scene between Roman and Kendall that I really felt. It was really intense, and I felt like it was very Shakespearean in a way.
Yeah.
And then this was like, this threw me off so much because I really, 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 I don't know. I felt like this was a perfect showcase of how to give someone bipolar, like while watching something. It felt like, I don't know, some weird brainwashing experiment. If you guys know, you guys know, because then all of a sudden, you have Roman has to vote, and he's confused. At first, he's confused. He's like, no. So that's good. Then it comes to Shiv, and she makes this face, and then Kendall is like, what's going on? And then she starts tearing up and she leaves. And then they go to another boardroom. And this fight, between the three was so intense and so like sad and tragic. And I really felt for Kendall. If you will, we saw earlier there was a pure innocence between the siblings. And this scene was pure innocence, but in a tragic lens. And Kendall was trying to plead his case as if he was a child. You would see like he would give excuses, say this and that. And Roman's like, no, come on, man. And Shiv, I don't understand. I really don't. But then they had a fight inside that room too. How intense? Because I really felt like my fist was like this. I really felt like to punch Roman so bad. I was so angry. And then when he was holding his face like that, because Roman says something really disrespectful too. He says basically that you're not blood. These people at the end of the day in their DNA, they're just... we should have listened to Logan's brother, like in season 1 when he said that it's just a pit of vipers. He's absolutely right.
Yeah. Oh my God, that scene was so heartbreaking because, like I said, right after they got along, and now they're kind of like at each other's throats, right? And the whole board is watching this too. I thought that was just so funny. Like, this is like not just between. It's not a private affair anymore. It's like now it's out in the open. And shit, I could not understand Shiv's motivation for doing this. I feel like, I don't know where this came from. I'm thinking maybe it's because like she felt like so attacked from either side. It's like, okay, well, it's either I pick Matsson or Kendall. And then at the end of the day, she's like, okay, well, I'm just going to screw everybody over. I don't know what her play was. Because I feel like, okay, so you say no to Kendall, but then it's like, oh, well, then you're just going to be Matsson's puppet again, and then he'll just screw you over. So it's like, I really couldn't get like the logic. It's like, I agree with Kendall, actually. I couldn't get the logic behind it. I don't know what your thoughts on that were.
I think it's really complex, and it'll kind of go down like in like, I don't know, philosophy or something. But I really think Shiv is a product of her generation now as a woman, and she's being led by a lot of masculine figures. And nowadays, a lot of women, they have to kind of take on the masculine role, especially in a job force, right? And so she is turned off by Tom many times. She sees Matsson, and it does seem like there was some chemistry, and even Matsson said like he would do something with her, right? And then Logan, of course, her daddy dies. She has 2 brothers, so she's being led around, and she feels really afraid that she'll be left out. And now that Tom, I think that conversation in the beginning was really important, because Tom is now more, I'd say, more colder towards her, more like less affectionate as he would be, like less hypocrite. And I think that's something that gets her heated. And I think in a way she's saying like, well, I'm still going to be in a shit situation, but I believe in this more, and I want to look out for my own interests, and at least it's Tom. But now it's not that I could control Tom. he's like, I could be the puppet master. No, it's this time she's just going to be the wife. So she reverted back to her feminine role, right? And all this time she was trying to fight against it. All these characters were trying to fight against, you know, their curses, and she couldn't fight against hers. So she lost at the end of the day. And I think in a way that's a sort of punishment for her. And I think she's going to be in that same exact role like the mother was. She's going to be a bad mother. And Tom is still going to be very cold. He learned his lesson. And maybe one day they'll divorce. And honestly, again, who has it the best is Connor and his relationship with Willa, because it's artificial, but it's something, and it doesn't cost anything. Well, maybe a couple $100,000 to keep her in the house, but still.
But it's genuine.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah. I feel like Connor was really the one that in a way succeeded everybody, right? Because he maybe not chose, well, he kind of chose, you know, not to be involved with this. So maybe like, you know, his ending was the most purest out of the Roys, right? For Shiv, yeah, it was like, I couldn't understand it. I maybe you're right. Maybe it was like she kind of like accepted who she was. Because I was thinking maybe she hated Tom more than Kendall. Right, because she was kind of like mad that, you know, he admitted to her that, you know, Madsen was talking to him about, you know, replacing her as the CEO. So I thought that's what was going to get her heated, and that's what, you know, made her decide to take, you know, the Roy boys side. So that whole conversation, you know, really was painful to listen. And then with Roman like mentioning you know, the bloodline thing, I think that was out of hand.
The bloodline and the kid thing that they mentioned, the kid and Kendall lied. Yeah,
that was too personal. And then like I thought like Kendall was gonna kill him for a minute.
Oh,
because it looked like they were like getting. Oh, and then like Shiv mentioned, I forgot. Shiv mentioned the like Kendall killing the kid too. Like I thought that was a little petty. Yeah, I think Shiv, like she'll like when she's pushed into a corner, she always like snaps and starts like pulling things that, you know, from the past.
Well,
like,
really
like
hurts.
Tom too. Yeah. So I thought that was a little petty.
But you know what though? You know who does that type of stuff when they're backed into a corner? Weak people. And so all you guys saying, "Oh, she's boss bitch," this and that. Yeah, okay. She didn't even get the CEO. All right. Well, that's her punishment again. That's her part. You don't get it. You want to be a boss bitch? You want to be like strong, independent? No, you're gonna get that from your husband. Now he's gonna be giving you money whenever you ask for it.
Right. But even then, it was. I feel like she wasn't even like making moves for herself. I feel like she was kissing Madsen's ass for a lot of. In a way, she's kind of kissing everybody's ass. 'Cause she was kissing the senator guy. You know, from. I mean, she was trying to make her own. Her own kind of network. And with Madsen, she dug her own grave. I keep saying this, but she really dug her own grave. And we saw the effects of that in this episode. Like, she really got played like a pregnant cello, as Roman said.
She honestly, like, if she was CEO, I think that it'll be fine. I think it'll match Gojo. And then plus with the Pierce acquisition, I think it'll fit, but I don't know. She really has it in her as well. Not because she's a woman, but because I think she sometimes wants to look for the easy way. And that's not it. You can't always, you know, maybe that's why she wants to like just get it over with and stuff. You know, she always wants the answers to just appear when it's convenient for her. And she wants, you know, she wants everything to be super convenient. And that's just not life. No matter what status you are in, or I don't know, I'm not speaking English good, but yeah, that's just the case. I am very disappointed by her and Roman. Wait, but okay, before we move on, let me cope a little bit, all right, guys, because I feel like sad too. Let me cope, all right. So we talked about Shiv, okay, that's her kind of like punishment, which is brutal, but that's her thing, right? Because again, the whole thing's a tragedy. I think with Roman, it's acceptance that you are the piece of shit, not Madsen. You said he's a piece of shit. You're the piece of shit, and you have to live it with that. And you ain't shit. That's it. You thought you were, and you're gonna stay like that. And you're just gonna be a bum drinking at the bar, right? And you're just gonna stay like that. You could be a playboy, right? But how can you be a playboy if you can't even get your dick hard too? So it's like he's done. He's screwed, and he accepts that he's a dog, right? And they put him in a cage back then. And with Kendall, Kendall sure can start his own business in the future. It won't be as successful as Jeremy Strong said, as Logan's business was, but at least it's something. But also he does have, what's his name? I keep forgetting the guy's name, the bodyguard.
Colin.
Yeah, at least he has Colin, because in a way they kind of bonded through tragedy, because Colin was very, he was super sad of Logan's passing. So at least Colin stuck around. That was amazing. That honestly brought tears to my eyes, because like, oh my God, out of everybody, this guy stayed. And the problem with Kendall is, Kendall will always have that over his head, but he never seemed like he really cared super much about his family. I mean, at the end of the day, he says like, I'm nothing without this, I'll die. Well, what about your kids? What about your kids? So now at least you have time to be with your children and hopefully become like a better father. I mean, I don't know, maybe he could get back with that lady. I mean, I don't know if it's really like Rava. Cause they did do it like in one of the seasons or something. So maybe there's something there. Maybe he has a change of heart. I just hope he doesn't revert back to like drugs and alcohol abuse. But again, Colin is there. I think the tribe really helps purify the soul when you have the right people next to you, and that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that for everybody, to be honest with you. So yeah,
it's really bittersweet, for everybody. I think also maybe I was thinking also that Shiv, maybe the reason she did this also was in a way kind of like her leverage, her only leverage with Matsson too. I really think she. If she was smart, she would have got dirt on Matsson as a contingency before she got fucked. And maybe in a way, I was thinking like, oh, well, she did this too, kind of because she could say to Matsson, oh, well, I'm the one that got you the vote. So now give me a bone or something too, right? But she's technically the queen now. And Tom, I think, I think it's appropriate actually that they picked him, right? I wanted it to be Kendall, honestly, but now I'm looking at it, it's like, it makes sense that it's Tom.
It's authentic, yeah.
It's always the biggest snakes that eat the most, right?
Yeah.
So Tom, from season 1, he was kind of like, the punching bag for like a lot of people. And now it's like, well, he endured the most. So now it's like his time to shine, right? And I think we were talking a little bit earlier about like, does Waystar really deserve the Roys as its legacy? Maybe it's time for a change, right? So now it's kind of like true to reality where like most companies now, like, they start off family owned, but then they get bought out, right, by these larger like corporations, right? And they kind of like lose power in a way. So I think Tom, he's still technically family, but now with the divorce thing, he's, kind of independent. So maybe it makes sense for him, to be this, because we've already seen his character, like with Italy from last season, where he kind of, showed his true colors, like he's willing to stab family in the back too. What interests me the most though was that he kept Greg. I thought that was really like, it shows that, he's still in a way kind of humble, because I think in a way he kind of saw Greg as himself, like he's been where Greg's been, like the punching bag guy. So maybe, but now I'm thinking like, okay, well, maybe he kept Greg around like as almost like a pet. Like, okay, well, like I know you fucked me. So it's like, now I'm going to keep you around and make your life harder too. So, but isn't it also fascinating that Greg's the only like real Roy that like, succeeded out of everybody?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, well, because he kind of followed Tom's like path, and even they changed a little bit of his sayings and the way how he says things. It's exactly like Tom sometimes, or like his phrasing of things, or like his vernacular in total. Like some things he says just sounds like Tom. Yeah, for sure. But here's the thing too. It's like, will Waystar be like okay? I don't think so. I think actually it's like a major dip, because anyway it was already declining in the, I'd say, social aspect. It's like people don't really respect it as much, and in a way it's like it's really authentic because they showed the election of the president, and it's really slippery and snaky and stuff. So maybe this is a good thing that actually Gojo take over. It's just when you stick around for like 4 seasons, you really want Kendall to win. But this is the most authentic thing. And also Tom, I remember, I think in season 3, when Tom was like, I think Logan had a urinary tract infection, and Tom was helping him out in the bathroom, and Logan said, "Thank you, son." Even if Logan is like completely, out of it, right? He maybe thought that Tom was someone else. It's kind of like a toxic type of thing, to put Tom as the king now. It's kind of like toxic, and he married into the family. It's very Shakespearean. So I have to give credit where credit's due to everybody else, but yeah.
Yeah, they should have got King Canute as
King Canute.
As the success.
He walks in there.
Yeah.
Shit. I mean, I wouldn't mind, to be honest with you. The Vikings. Yeah, that's who Madsen brings in.
Yeah.
King Canute. Yeah.
Well, what are your final thoughts on this episode and how it rated? Because we have more thoughts coming up, guys. We're going to be talking about this season in depth in our season 4 review, but I want to get your final thoughts on this episode and your rating.
I thought I'm not happy with this episode. I'm not happy whatsoever. I feel very sad. But I think it's the best outcome that could have happened. I think they ended it in a very realistic and authentic way to the story. So I appreciate that. Still though, I'm not happy, but I can't blame them for telling their truth in the best way they could. So for that, I appreciate. I also appreciate that it was 1 hour and 30 minutes rather than something that's 55 minutes. So it did feel like they took their time, and it felt like there was I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 acts. So it did kind of feel like a play. And it's really interesting too, because it makes you stare, because the camera work is a lot different here. It's not like a play this time. It's more how it was in season 1, where it's you're getting into this world. It feels like, again, I'm getting into this world, or this time I'm leaving. So before the lights go out, I need to really pay attention. So it makes you stare at things. And so I think everything was really effective and well utilized. I would rate this episode, my critic self will rate this episode a 9 out of 10. My, fan of Succession self would rate this episode a 5 out of 10. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I have to agree with all your points. I think this was, in a way, the best outcome for the show. Because really, if you think about it, it's how long can they really keep this going before it starts losing, its value, right? So you kind of have to end it while it's very toxic. Otherwise, once it starts becoming too comfortable, then it doesn't really have that Succession flavor that you expect from it, right? So I think for me, I would have preferred if they had just done one more episode, to be honest. Because I feel like even though it was about an hour and something long, I think it was a little too rushed for me, because they tried to close too many loops. And I wish we would have seen at least some characters like Rava or Mencken, one more time before we closed out. I think it was nice, though, that they did include one more shot with Brian Cox, even if it was a video. I thought that was appropriate. But I just felt like the ending, and it was just so sudden for me. It was kind of shock value. And I wish they would have had some bit of closure, even if it was one episode, just to see the aftermath of what happened, right? But I guess in a way, it's kind of left to our imagination, right? What this outcome is, and it's a very true to life tale, and it's like I said, it's a tragedy, right? So, well, they got me. Shit,
me too.
I'm gonna be depressed for weeks thinking about this, but in a way, it's like we stuck around with this show for so long, and maybe that's why it hurts more. So I think in that regard, it's effective. So for me, I'm rambling, but for me, I'm going to give this a 8 out of 10. I know it hurts. It really hurts. If you guys were watching this episode, you probably felt the same as us with how you felt about it. But for me, 8 out of 10.
Okay. Well, yeah. So everybody, this is our final episodic review for Succession Season 4. Now, coming up soon, we're going to have a review discussion for Season 4 in total, so stick around for that if you guys can. Also, check out the intro we made. We tried to remake the Succession intro, so I hope you guys enjoy that one. But yeah, we have Barry coming up, and we have a lot more shows that we're consistently reviewing. We're maintaining busy. Again, we're small, boutique, light on our feet, and all that jazz. So thank you so so much if you stuck around with us since the very first episode of Succession Season 4. Dylan, please take us away.
Well, I hope in the future we could do a Succession Revisited, because it's a great show, guys. If you haven't checked it out on HBO, it's worth watching. Check out all our episode-by-episode reviews for Succession Season 4 if you haven't already. And yeah, check out our intro that we did. Akram did an amazing job editing it, and we had so much fun filming it. But if this is the final fuck off, then fuck off, guys.
Fuck off. See you guys.